All right, Cowboys Nation, let's get into it because the coaching situation in Dallas is heating up faster than anyone expected. If you thought this offseason was going to be all about the draft, free agency, and the same old chatter, you're going to want to pay attention because the real changes are happening behind the scenes, and they're deeper than most people realize. The Dallas Cowboys are not just tweaking the roster. They are reshaping the very foundation of the team, and that foundation is the coaching staff. Christian Parker is clearly building his own staff, and that means letting go of some notable assistants in the process. This is not just a few tweaks here and there. This is a full reset. Let's start with the biggest name on the offensive side, Lunda Wells. He's not just a tight ends coach. He's become a key figure in the Cowboys' offensive structure, and now he's interviewing with the Pittsburgh Steelers for their open offensive coordinator job. And this isn't the first time Wells has been in the mix for a coordinator role. He was also interviewed for the Washington Commanders' offensive coordinator position, which eventually went to an internal promotion. But this Pittsburgh situation feels different, and it's something that should worry Cowboys fans more than the Commanders' job did. The reason is simple. In Pittsburgh, under Mike McCarthy, it is very possible the offensive coordinator role will be a non-play calling position, which would be a perfect fit for Wells, who has not traditionally been a play caller and doesn't have the typical offensive coordinator resume. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. Mike McCarthy has been linked to play calling in the past, especially when he first returned to the NFL with the Cowboys. Many expected him to take on play calling duties again. If he does that in Pittsburgh, it creates a role that makes sense for someone like Lunda Wells. Wells has a background that includes time at LSU, a quality control role with the Giants, assistant offensive line coach, tight ends coach, and then the move to Dallas where McCarthy brought him in. That connection is real, and it's significant. And let's be clear, a promotion from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator is not something you can block. It's a career step, and if the league offers it, teams usually let their coaches pursue it. The Cowboys could try to hold on to him, but that would go against the entire direction this organization is moving in right now. So, the question becomes, will the Cowboys lose Lunda Wells? And if they do, is it a disaster or simply the cost of larger change? The truth is, if the Cowboys want to give Christian Parker a clean slate, keeping Wells might not even be an option. He has proven his value in Dallas, and now he's in a position to advance. From a fan's perspective, it's a loss. But from an organizational standpoint, it could be a sign that the Cowboys are finally willing to let their staff grow and move forward, even if it means letting go of some key pieces. The cost is real, but the intention behind it is also clear. Now let's shift to the defensive side, where the changes are equally dramatic. Aaron White-Cotton has accepted a job with the Tennessee Titans as defensive line coach and run game coordinator. The title sounds impressive, but it's important to understand the context. In many cases, the run game coordinator title is more of a label than a true coordinator role. It's a promotion in name and status, but not necessarily a step up in the traditional coaching hierarchy. Still, it's enough to attract a coach looking to advance his career, and that's exactly what happened here. What's interesting is that the Cowboys could have blocked White-Cotton from leaving. The league allows teams to block coaches in certain situations, but Dallas chose not to. They let him pursue the opportunity, and that decision says something. It's as if the Cowboys are saying, if you want to move on, we won't stand in your way because we're building something new. And that aligns with the bigger picture. Christian Parker is assembling his own coaching staff with Brian Schottenheimer involved in the process. This is not about repeating what has already been done. It's about building something new, and the departure of White-Cotton fits into that plan. The reality is that White-Cotton was a perfect fit for Robert Saleh's defensive scheme. He worked with Saleh in Buffalo and New York, and his coaching style matched that system. But with Christian Parker, the fit may not be as strong. That doesn't mean White-Cotton isn't a good coach. It just means he might not be the best fit for the new defensive identity the Cowboys are trying to build. And if that's the case, then letting him go makes sense. It allows the Cowboys to bring in a coach who aligns more closely with Parker's vision. Now, the name to watch for the defensive line coach position is Marcus Dixon, currently with the Minnesota Vikings. He has already interviewed for the Cowboys' defensive line coach job and has a resume that stands out. He's worked with the Rams, had a role with the Broncos, and has been in Minnesota the past couple of years. The key factor here is familiarity with Christian Parker, which matters a lot when building a staff. Dixon also has a reputation for developing players, which is something the Cowboys desperately need. They have talent, but the question has always been whether the coaching staff can consistently elevate that talent to its full potential. There is also the possibility of competition for Dixon, especially from Washington. The Commanders recently hired Dante Jones as their defensive coordinator, and Jones has worked with Dixon in Minnesota. That connection could complicate things. But the fact remains that Dallas is clearly targeting young, high-potential coaches, which signals a shift in philosophy. They are not simply replacing a few assistants. They are rebuilding the foundation. The reality is that the offseason is getting increasingly chaotic, and the Cowboys are at a point where fans' patience may be tested. But at the same time, this could be the beginning of something different, something that elevates the team to a new level. Every decision matters, because this isn't just about who comes in or who leaves. It's about the direction the franchise is heading. So here's the question. How confident are you in Christian Parker to build this staff? On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you place him? And more importantly, do you think the Cowboys should try to retain coaches like Lunda Wells and Aaron White-Cotton? Or is this complete renovation the right move? Let me know, because this offseason is shaping up to be one of the most intriguing in recent Cowboys history. Now that we've covered the big names and the major shift happening in Dallas, let's keep digging into what this offseason is really shaping up to be. The coaching carousel is spinning faster than most people anticipated, and the Cowboys are clearly not interested in a slow, gradual transition. They are moving quickly, and the most important thing to understand is that this is not just about replacing a few coaches. It's about a complete cultural reset. When you look at the assistants that have been let go, the common thread is that they were tied to the previous defensive leadership. This was not a surprise to anyone who follows the league, but it is still significant because it marks a definitive end of one era and the beginning of another. We already know that the Cowboys parted ways with Dave Baranzi, Andre Curtis, and David Overeat II. These are not random cuts. They were a clear message that the new coaching staff is going to be built around Christian Parker's vision and not around the legacy of the old regime. Baranzi, Curtis, and Overeat were all tied to Matt Eberflus, and they had history together from their time in Chicago and Indianapolis. The fact that they were not asked to return should not come as a shock. If anything, the surprise would have been if they stayed. The Cowboys are making a clean break, and that is something that you don't see every year in this organization. The real question now is what happens to the remaining coaches who are still under contract, but are allowed to seek other jobs or stay with the team if they want. Darian Thompson, J.J. Clark, Brian Bing, and Tanzel Smart are the names that remain, at least for now. None of these coaches have the same level of influence or notoriety as the ones who were let go. They're not the type of coaches that would be considered untouchable. It would not be shocking if the Cowboys decide to move on from all of them and start fresh. The only one who might have a legitimate chance to stick around is J.J. Clark, mainly because his background fits what Brian Schottenheimer likes in terms of coaching profile. Clark has a strong college coaching background, and that could be appealing to the new leadership. But even then, it is not guaranteed. This brings up a bigger point about what the Cowboys are trying to do. When a new head coach comes in, the standard expectation is that he will bring in his own staff. That is common across the NFL. But in Dallas, it hasn't always happened that cleanly. The Cowboys have often kept pieces of the previous staff, and sometimes that has led to a lack of cohesion. This time, it appears they are trying to avoid that mistake. They want a staff that is fully aligned with a new defensive identity. That means the possibility of an entirely new defensive coaching staff in 2026 is not out of the question. In fact, it might be the most likely outcome if the Cowboys are truly committed to building something new. And the reason this matters so much is because the defensive philosophy is going to be a major factor in the team's success. Christian Parker is coming from a background that includes plenty of five-man front concepts, which suggests that the Cowboys might be leaning toward more five-man front looks. Whether you call it a 3-4 or a 4-3, the difference is becoming less important in today's NFL. What matters is the versatility, the ability to create pressure, and the ability to match up against modern offenses. The personnel the Cowboys have makes a five-man front look very appealing. They have the edge rushers, they have the size, and they have the flexibility to mix in different fronts. So if Parker wants to build a defense that can create confusion and disruption, a five-man front approach could be the key. Another big piece of this puzzle is the ongoing interview process. The Cowboys have been linked to a number of younger coaches, including Shane Bowen and Denzel Martin. Bowen, who has experience as a defensive coordinator and has worked under Mike Vrabel for years, is someone who brings a certain level of energy and a clear identity. Some have questioned his performance as a defensive coordinator, especially during his time in New York, but his resume is still impressive. He is someone who could be brought in as a linebackers coach or outside linebackers coach, but his experience as a coordinator makes him an intriguing candidate. It's also worth noting that the Cowboys have been looking at coaches who are familiar with the type of defensive concepts Parker prefers. That's not a coincidence. It's a deliberate strategy. Denzel Martin is another name that has come up, and he represents the type of young, rising coach that Dallas seems to be targeting. He has worked his way up from being a recruiting assistant to being the outside linebackers coach in Pittsburgh. His journey is a classic example of a coach who has paid his dues and earned opportunities through hard work. The Cowboys requesting permission to interview him indicates that they are serious about bringing in fresh, innovative minds. And the fact that these coaches are relatively young is not a negative. In fact, it might be a positive because it suggests that the Cowboys are looking for coaches who can grow with the team and develop players over time. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well.